Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our January Career Cafe on careers in STEM and scientific research with special guest speaker, Dr. Luke Rogers from On Demand Pharmaceuticals. If you have any questions today during the presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll get to it before the end of the presentation. Thank you, Dr. Rogers, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks very much, April. Thanks for this opportunity to speak to a number of schools in the area and reach out. It's a big part of what On Demand Pharmaceuticals wants to do in the future. We're a pretty young company, so I'm going to give a bit of background to the listeners, talk through kind of our origin stories, and then what we do, and then really why we do it, and why we see it as a problem that needs to be fixed in our country, and then also just everywhere in the world. So we are a DoD funded startup. So our CEO, Dr. Jeffrey Ling, had this idea while he was on a mountaintop in Afghanistan in 2003. And he had a young soldier who was injured and he needed medication to stabilize him and get him on a flight back to Germany. It was a 13-hour flight and he didn't have access to the medication he needed. And you think, the American military system, well equipped with everything, but still there's shortages, there's issues. It's an old drug. He should have access to it, but he just didn't. So they were able to fly the drug from Germany in the suit of a jet fighter and actually stabilize the young soldier. And he's now a veterinarian. So, that's a very good outcome for that story. But he's a chemist by training, as I am. And he felt, most drugs, if people don't know, are, mixtures of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and a few other things. So we always joke, and if you can see in the background, this mural, which one of your teachers actually across Attlee in Hanover helped paint, if you had a pencil for carbon, water for hydrogen and oxygen, and egg for sulfur and nitrogen, the joke is that you can make any molecule in the world. So this idea kind of plagued them for the next few years of, why is chemistry so complex? Why do people not have the access to drugs that they need? So he went to this magical place called DARPA, and it's kind of a advanced research organization for the DoD. They come up with things like stealth fighters, the internet, GPS, and just a lot of crazy stuff. And basically their job is to ask crazy questions, fund it, and see how far we get. So he went there and he came up with this Pharmacy on Demand initiative. So I have a few slides which I can go through and just showcase, what the tech is and again, why we're doing it. So I can just share my screen. So are you seeing a presenter screen or a full screen?
Yes, we can see full screen.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so this is kind of our vision. The fundamental belief of the company is that we don't think it matters where on the earth that you live, that you completely need access to high quality, affordable medications. And I think, we can all agree education and medication and healthcare, if you can provide that to people, it completely enables and transforms their lives. So, we have the teachers that you work with every day doing, the education for us, and hopefully we can do our part with the healthcare and providing drugs for people who need it and, when they need it. And really, this is our tagline, affordable, high quality for everyone, everywhere, every time. So that's our mission statement. And where the problem is, this is, technical stuff, but basically, you hear in the media, maybe you hear your parents talking about it, that, always an increase in drug pricing. If you have a sick family member, that's a concern. Are you going to be able to pay for your medications this month? Quality issues, drugs being recalled because of contaminations and impurities in them. And then even with COVID, these shortages and delays because there's just so much demand for these drugs across the world. So this causes lots of issues with pharma that we hear about. And a real one to highlight is, if people can see, tetracycline. So this is a really standard antibiotic. It's been around for 40 years, and this has seen a crazy price hike by nearly 7,000% because there's only one group of people that make it, and then they can set the price that they want to. Another one people may have heard in the media recently was this Pharma Bro, where they had a medication for malaria and AIDS patients. So people who are, very sick, who are dying from these diseases every day. And they bought up the rights to this drug, and it went from $13 a pill up to $750 a pill. There was outrage, but to this day, that's still $750 a pill. And that's been like that for the last 3 years. So again, that doesn't sit right with us. We feel that these are people who need this medication, and we don't want kind of stupid scenarios like that happening where people get greedy and see they can make a bit of a buck, but it's at the cost of people's lives. So that's where we're trying to step in and see, can we be a disruptor and help fix that problem? So then how we want to do it is, we want this kind of network that you can see in your screens here. So typically, pharmaceutical drugs are made in one location. So I'm from Ireland, and Ireland produces a lot of drugs, and you make them there and then you distribute them out around the world. So you think of a pill pretty much like, weighs a couple of milligrams, and you're flying these around the world, and it costs a lot of money to have this supply chain. What if we could flip that? What if we could do manufacturing at point of care? So if you're in a hospital, instead of flying the drugs into all those different locations, you actually just make the drugs at that location. So then people are empowered to make the medications that they need. You can be ready for supply and demand issues. So if there's an outbreak like with COVID, and you need to start making certain medications, you can do that yourself, and you're not relying on disparate places in the world to get you your medication and when you need it. So we want this distributed network of manufacturing units that we've designed. And there's some reasons for it, which we'll go through now. So pharmaceutical manufacturing facilities are these monstrous mazes of pipes and reactors. If you can think of it as like an old way to make cars, where you make one car at a time, you pass that on, you start making the next one. We do this thing called continuous manufacturing. So it's basically an assembly line where you're just adding small parts to the molecule as you go along, and you're just continuously making things. It can be more efficient in terms of time, in terms of money, in terms of better for the environment. And we can actually, in a pretty small form factor, make millions of doses of drugs. And that's kind of what we aim to do, that like you have something here, which is, 100,000 square foot versus something that's 4,000 square feet. And we can match the demand by just running continuously, generating material. And to kind of bring it back to other technology that you might know, where we see this evolution is, the first Apple computer there, a wooden frame to it back in the 70s. And you've seen the evolution up to like 1.5 billion active devices that are run on mobile software. This, like, if you went back to the 70s and thought of this, like, you'd be laughed at and you'd be thought crazy, because just the processing power wasn't there, and a number of reasons why you wouldn't envision it. But that's where we kind of have that lofty ambition of, it was 2020 when we kind of broke out from our initial funding and to really focus on this network across America. And we have plans for, every kind of 5 years of expanding this network. You could maybe bring it to like Tesla superchargers, where if you can build an infrastructure which helps your supply chain, you'll be much better off, and you'll be able to get to the people, get them the medication when they need it. And think about it. So there's an issue in kind of supply, which is like last mile. So, every time if I fly something, say from India over to, New York, then New York has to travel down to Richmond has to drive. So each journey gets smaller and smaller, but it's sometimes takes even longer for those small journeys. So this is where we're looking at point of care manufacturing. So, can you have a unit of ours in your local CVS? Can you have it in the hospitals? And even better, can you have it in your fire stations? So there's about 50,000 fire stations across America. And I think most people would agree, they all know where their most local one is. So what if you need your medication? You just walk or drive to your local fire station, and then they can make the medication for you and dispense it in, national disasters or in pandemics. So this is, again, trying to solve these distribution problems so that people can get the medication when they need it. And why we want to do this, I kind of alluded to it earlier, was we want to the term democratize medicine. So instead of these people trying to eke out what's the highest price they can charge for their medicines to make their profit, we want to drive to the bottom. So if we give, say, April a machine, she can sell ciprofloxacin, an antibiotic, at $1 a pill. What if we give Shannon one? She can sell it at 95 cents. You get that bidding war where you're racing to the bottom and you're getting people the medication they need for something that they can afford. And it's not this, well, how much can I, extract out of people while still getting the drugs that they need? So we don't like that at all. We're trying to disrupt that so that we can reach as many people and vulnerable people that we can. So I've kind of talked a lot about the backgrounds to the company and why we do it, and hopefully that resonates with a lot of people on the call. What do these units actually look like? So this is what they look like up in MIT, where we developed the technology. If people can see my cursor, these are refrigerator-sized modules. So, we put the chemicals in at the bottom. We manufacture the drugs from, basic chemicals. We purify them, and then we actually make it into a pill. So in the size of a pretty small room, you can manufacture, we've showcased 18 different drugs where you can go from starting materials in like liquid form up to tablets, which you can, in that tableting unit, you open a drawer, you take your tablet out and you could take it. You obviously have to do the correct paperwork to make sure it's legally you're allowed to take it, but we've been able to showcase that we can hit the quality standards that are set by the FDA, who regulate these things. So, and then these are some of the staff that worked on it. So again, a lot of the times we want it like I don't know if people are with vending machines or kind of Keurigs coffee machines where you put something in, you press a button, and then out comes your pill. That's what the future state we want to get this to. So we have technicians working on these things, trying to improve them, see what their pain points are, how we can make them better, more user-friendly. A bit closer to home. So this photo was taken at Virginia Commonwealth University, so in their biotech facility. And we were there for about a year and a half, again, working on these units to improve them. And it's the same kind of concept, chemicals in at the bottom. We manufacture them and we purify them, and then we make tablets again. So we just moved out of this facility, and I'll go into where we are now in a small bit. But yeah, there's a lot of great work just down the road from you based on this project. And that's how kind of came to be to speaking here today, is through that close connections, and we'll continue that collaboration on in the future. But this is some of our team, just our leadership team. So I've mentioned Colonel Jeff Ling. So this was his kind of brainchild, but we have a pretty diverse background of folk. John being a pharmacist for 16 years, we have engineers, we have chemists, we have business development people. We've been able to grow from about 3 people, formal employees, in August of this year. We're up to 60 now, and we've received a lot of exposure because of COVID, of maybe the system is broken. Is there something like this that could fill in the gaps when you've got these surges in demand because of global pandemics? So we're looking to just grow even further and push this technology on for the beneficent reasons that I mentioned before. Our board of directors, our chairman, David Steinberg, and his business partner, people might know from certain Apple-related movies. So John Scully, so former CEO of Pepsi and Apple, they've were early investors and continue to help us in terms of business strategy and marketing. That's their area of expertise. And then we have our whole board of scientific advisors, professors that kind of created the first units in MIT, and then other people who have helped advise and bring the project along. So what is life like for us? So we've just moved into a 44,000 square foot facility in Rockville, Maryland. So driving responsibly, that's about an hour and 45-minute drive from where most of your folk are. I do drive a good bit. We have R&D, so our research and development is located with GMP suite. So that term just means our manufacturing. So we can manufacture drugs in this wing of the building, and then we can do our R&D in the same building. So that's it's nuanced, but it's a nice facet to have, that we don't have to use different sites to do these things. We are entrenched with darker people, that kind of magical organization I mentioned at the start of the talk. So we're always encouraged to try new ideas. No idea is silly or stupid. Try it out. I'm working on an idea now called the tipsy bartender, where we're trying to use ideas like this to automate how we, dispense chemistry and chemicals and things like that. So we're always encouraged. No idea is too silly, because if it pays off and you're able to showcase you can do it, it's obviously going to be very beneficial for the company, and then hopefully beneficial for the customer, the patients in the hospital. So we're technology driven, so we do build and kind of create the units, and we have to test them, ensure that they're safe to use and things like that. As I said, we have a small but expanding team. 60 people, and we're hoping to get a lot more in the next kind of 6 months or so. This was a general kind of talk just to introduce people to a company that is just down the road to them in the STEM area, but we are hiring always, and kind of the ideal candidate across levels. So we take on people with PhDs, with bachelor's, masters, and then also we're looking at people kind of straight out of high school. And the big thing for us is, can we train people? Like if you have the right attitude, in my mind, it doesn't necessarily matter where you've hop off your educational bandwagon. It's are you self-motivated? Like there's going to be people who will just do well, and can we get them at an early age and train them up and get them thinking about these concepts? People who just like to take things apart, play with them, understand how things work, that's ideal for us. But then also people who just like a bit of routine, who are able to follow procedure, complete a task, ask questions of like, was that the best way to do things or not? So, curious individuals. Communication is key. We work with, as I said, chemists, engineers, business development people. So we're around people with different backgrounds. So you have to be able to communicate your ideas to them clearly so that they understand. Sometimes people will be technical, sometimes they won't be. So you can't go into the weeds with people all the time, because they just won't, be able to follow along. So that's another important part. So this was just a pretty short introduction into us. I'd love to have any conversations and answer questions that people might have about us, or just STEM in general, of trying to get people more and more excited about going into a career in STEM. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rogers. That is so helpful. And the company is so interesting and doing such wonderful things. I'm sure this is going to be really beneficial for our students that are watching and learning more about, what pharmaceutical companies do and what kind of career opportunities there are in STEM. So anyone who's on the call, if you want to put a question in the chat, if you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, feel free to do that.
Dr. Rogers, I have a question. Are there any opportunities for students that might be interested in STEM or scientific research that within your company now or over the summer, or do you foresee anything like that if it doesn't exist now?
For sure. So we just have a policy of just taking in CVs and talking to people. Conversations it costs a small bit of time, but you never know what you might find. So we're looking at trying to roll out like internship programs over the summer. So that's obviously like a part-time or like a short period, but completely as well, there'll be potential for full-time jobs with us. Again, it's just getting the right fit, understanding what the person wants to get out of the job and how best we can tailor it to them, so that not only are they successful, then we'll be successful because of them. So
awesome. Thank you. I have another question.
Yeah,
well, how about your background? Where did you start out? How did you get to where you're at right now?
I would say it is in no way planned, my journey in life so far. So it's a lot of right place, right time. So I did So I was in, high school in a local high school, and it was a rough enough high school back in Ireland, and my dad was kind of sick and tired of hearing all the stories, so he moved me to a different school, a bit more focused on science and stuff like that, and I just fell in love with chemistry. It was one of those kind of cliches that you'll hear, but the teacher was just fantastic. Absolutely loved it. Really focused on that. Then probably at the detriment to other things like, English or French or Irish, which is, we have to study. And yeah, went to college, did a degree in medicinal chemistry, and then kind of accidentally fell into a PhD. Happened to ask a professor, who was teaching us, what's the next steps if you wanted to do a PhD. I was just trying to find out. I no idea if I wanted to do it or not. And we had a discussion, and 30 minutes later, he kind of offered me a PhD. And again, I walked out I was like, oh, do I want to do a PhD? I have no idea. So I had to go pretty quickly think about it and give him an answer. But yeah, that got me into a PhD. And then I worked for a pharmaceutical company straight out of that. And then very randomly came across a job offer for a position at MIT that I just happened to get an email from an individual who was looking at my research. I happened to click on the link because I was intrigued why to be looking at my research. And there was a job application, submitted the last hour of the last day of the application. And within under a week, I was texting my parents to say I was moving to Boston.
Wow.
So I guess it's a lesson of, best laid plans and all that, but sometimes you just have to be open to taking a chance or taking an opportunity. And I think why I've done well in the company is with the whole DARPA thing, is that's all about it. Is it's opportunity. It's that ability to say yes when people around you might be saying, oh, that's silly or that's foolish. Why would you do that? It's opportunity. And surrounding yourselves with people who will encourage that behavior, I think, is only positive. So yeah, if you don't have your life figured out right now, you do not have to worry. You can people to talk to, you can figure it out. But I am a poster child for not having things planned out, but they've worked well for me because of just a willingness to try things, to put yourself out there. I could have multiple occasions I said no because I was like, it's MIT. How would I get in there? Maybe my grades weren't the strongest. My background wasn't the strongest. So I told myself lots of times, oh, there's no point doing it. But then something switched in the last day. I was like, you know what, actually, who cares? I send it on. If they say no, they say no. And, they said yes. And my life has very much changed in the positive because of it. So yeah, it's be willing to put yourself out there. What's the worst that can happen kind of thing.
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that with us.
It really is. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions?
When I was in high school, I was pretty shy and bashful. So I'm not sure if I'd be asking questions at events. I'd be in the private to the teacher. I'd be afterwards going, oh, I have a question for you.
Yes. Right.
Well, if we have students who have questions later or watch the video later and have a question, do you want them to, reach out through us? Or are you comfortable with them reaching out to you directly? What would you recommend?
Yeah, they can reach out directly. I don't know what's your normal process. I want to be respectful of how you guys normally run things, but whichever is easiest for you, I don't mind. Again, if it's just general questions as well, I'm always happy to help young people try to forge their path. As I said, these things are difficult, especially in the last year. So always happy to have a chat with people, give them my advice. It's not going to be the most structured, as you can guess from my path, but hopefully it's an encouraging one.
Very encouraging, very encouraging. Well, we will, if you're comfortable with that, we will definitely, I thought we had a question. Any questions, we will direct them to you. And thank you for allowing our students and parents to do that. And this is really, just as April said, really a great Career Cafe event, just with the times that we're in. And it's just so relevant to everything going on right now in this time, but also really at any time. So what you all are doing is just so innovative and new and exciting, and we just appreciate you sharing it with us.
No problem. It's been fantastic to be able to talk to people. As you can tell, it's usually getting me to be quiet is the problem. So I'm a bit like the donkey in Shrek. So yeah, always happy to talk careers, science, whatever. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. This was wonderful.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Have a great day.